You know, it can sometimes feel like getting middle schoolers excited about the idea of reading is a never-ending challenge for teachers, especially in a day and age where there are more distractions than ever. And when you add the online learning component into things, well, that's a whole nother box of Cracker Jacks entirely. But maybe there's something that we can do to really get them pumped up about reading again, to get them involved and engaged. And it starts by going back to elementary school. Stick with me, and we'll talk about it. Hi, and welcome to Classroom Confidential. My name is Christopher Youngren, and I'm a middle school ELA teacher in Tucson, Arizona. You know, I read to my own boys almost every single night at home before bed. In fact, I'm in hot water if I ever try and skip a night. And by and large, we as teachers read to kids out loud up through about 5th grade. And yet something happens between 5th grade and middle school. In middle school, I think we have this perception that because they can read pretty well, hopefully by that age themselves, we no longer have to read aloud to them. And yet the thing is, middle schoolers and even high schoolers really still enjoy being read aloud to. Heck, I still enjoy being read aloud to. And beyond the enjoyment factor, there are actually several benefits to reading aloud to students. And in this video, we're going to talk about a few of them. You know, I had the best of intentions at the beginning of the year. Heck, I know we all did. And then COVID hit and all hell broke loose, and now we're all virtual teaching and everything has changed. And what I've found out through the process, and perhaps you have as well, is that online everything is slow. It takes so much more time to get through anything online than it ever did in person. And this absolutely applies to reading as well. I mean, I started off last quarter trying to get the kids to read on their own, a chapter a night. It seemed doable. It didn't seem too overwhelming from my perception. But then again, I'm not a middle schooler. And yet I found out by the end of the week, very few people were doing the reading, so I had to rethink that, and I'm like, well, let's try round-robin reading. Well, round-robin reading, as many of you might know, has its own share of challenges, and when you put round-robin reading online, it has even more challenges. I mean, first of all, it stigmatizes readers who are not as strong, and so while you have plenty of students who are eager to read and who kind of want that limelight, there are other people who really don't like being singled out, and it makes them feel insecure and even less confident in their ability to read rather than more confident. There's also audio problems. You know about the audio problems, for crying out loud. You got garbled audio, you got delayed audio. I mean, there's nothing worse than getting to the most exciting part of a book and having the student say, hello, my name is you kill my father. Prepare to die, you know. I mean, it's much more beneficial to have audio that the kids can hear, to have text that the kids can follow. And one of the ways that we can do this is simply by saying, you know what, it doesn't matter the channel by which you're receiving the information. What really matters is, are you comprehending the information? And the best way to ensure that they're receiving the message clearly is simply to read aloud to them. So the first thing that reading aloud does for your students is it models fluent reading. And when you can read to students with strength and purpose and energy and excitement, they're going to be a lot more likely to get involved and excited about what you're reading themselves. It's really hard for students to stay engaged in a book and to keep paying attention when you're switching from student to student to student. Some students who are able to read quite well, some who have more difficulty, some who have audio problems, etc. But when you as the teacher have done your homework and really are familiar with the text and know how to present it in a way that's alive and awake and exciting, they are going to be a lot more interested and they're going to get a lot more out of the experience and hopefully retain and comprehend a lot more as a result. It also helps students build vocabulary. When they're able to hear words pronounced correctly in the context of a sentence that's smoothly flowing, they're going to be a lot more likely to understand the meaning, even if they've never encountered that word before. You know, it's kind of like going to a Shakespeare play when you're not familiar with Shakespeare, and for the first few minutes, your ear kind of has to get the hang of the olden-timey language, but then after a while, because of the actions meeting the language and everything coming together in a smooth way, you really start to understand, even if you're not catching every single word. However, when you as the teacher are reading aloud to your students, it allows you the ability to stop when you encounter words that they may be unfamiliar with and explain what those words mean. And it's a heck of a lot easier than you trying to stop a student who's reading aloud online who may have delayed audio or garbled audio, or they can't hear you, or even just having to say, oh, excuse me, let me stop you right there, or oh, by the way, you know that word you mentioned a half a page ago and it's taken this long for their audio to catch up. Oh, let's talk about that word. When you are in control of the pace and flow, it's going to be a lot easier for you to kind of pre-script these stopping points to talk about things like words they may not be familiar with. Now, along those lines, it allows you to have predetermined stopping points for class discussion, whether it be on character or story structure or the author's philosophy at a certain point, what have you. Or even if students themselves have questions, when you are in control of the narrative, it is a lot easier to control these elements than it would be if you had to interrupt a student when they themselves were reading. And finally, read-alouds are enjoyable. Read-alouds can be so much fun and entertaining for your students. And right here, right now, in this world, you need to be entertaining. Anybody who says that entertainment is not part of teaching has never taught a day in their life. And especially in this world where, quite frankly, you're just another app on their screen, you need to be a more interesting app than Minecraft or YouTube. You need to be able to hold their attention. And how are you going to do this? You're going to do this by being a dynamic reader. You're going to do this by bringing fun to reading and showing them how exciting reading can be by demonstrating, by modeling what good reading is. And man, sky's the limit on this. You know how strong a reader you are. You know how strong a read-aloud reader you are. And if you're not as strong, then you need to practice. And you need to bring them an experience that's going to keep them engaged and involved. And along these lines, have them be reading the book along with you. Not out loud, but make sure that everybody in your class is able to follow along in their own book. So they're not just hearing the words, but they're seeing the words. And so it's all coming together in this, I hate to use the word because it's overused, it's all coming together in a synergistic way that brings out the absolute best in the experience and makes it an enjoyable one for them that they will not soon forget. I promise you, this will work. Give it a shot. I'd like to leave you with this thought today. Just remember that students, even high school students, are still kids. They may be getting taller, they may be getting hairier and smellier, but there are still certain things that bring them comfort, like being read aloud to. And when they feel comfortable and when they feel nurtured, I guarantee you they're gonna buy in a lot more than if you put them on the spot and demand them to perform themselves. Yes, speaking standards are part of the state requirements, but you know what? Leave that for a book report or something. When it comes to the enjoyment of literature, be the model for them. Be the change that you want to see in your students, to paraphrase Gandhi. And I promise you, you're going to get a lot of mileage out of it. Thanks for joining me today. Be well out there. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of someone else. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.